Now to an in-depth interview with outgoing chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley. For the past 3 years, he has been the principal military advisor to President Biden, and before that, then President Donald Trump. General Milley sat down with Chief Global Affairs correspondent and This Week co-anchor Martha Raddatz ahead of his retirement at the end of the month.
In his 44-year career, Mark Milley has seen great loss.
Those 13 gave their lives so that people they never met will have an opportunity to live in freedom.
Great triumph.
There are now 31 members of NATO, and NATO is even stronger and united in the face of Russia's aggression.
And no small degree of controversy, becoming one of the most well-known chairmen of the Joint Chiefs of Staff in recent history, like it or not.
As one previous chairman told me, DC can be a contact sport. I grew up playing contact sports, and it can be rough sometimes. So you take your shots and you deal with it.
If he's not a terrorist, don't worry about it.
Milley spent 5 years in war zones, from Iraq, where I first met him, to Afghanistan, before Donald Trump chose him to be the nation's top military officer in 2019.
You can rest assured that I will always provide you informed, candid, impartial military advice.
That became an understatement. The Princeton-educated hockey player, known for his brash, blunt, and sometimes profanity-laced advice, makes clear his oath is to the Constitution, not politicians.
I think it's very important that we in uniform stay nonpartisan, apolitical, and we stay out of politics. I think that's critical. It's fundamental to the health of the republic.
And he learned that lesson the hard way. In June 2020, Milley made what he quickly realized was one of the biggest mistakes of his military career.
Who do you protect?
After police forcefully cleared protesters fighting for racial justice in an area surrounding the White House, General Milley, in battle dress uniform, walked with Donald Trump across Lafayette Square, an image projecting clear political support.
And I said at the time, and I'll say it again, I shouldn't have been there. I should have recognized it, and as soon as I did recognize it, I walked it away.
But for days after that walk through Lafayette Square, Milley considered resigning. While he has not and will not talk about Donald Trump publicly, Milley acknowledged he has spoken to several authors of books written about Trump, books he says he never read. According to one, The Divider, he wrote a letter of resignation to President Trump that he did not send, saying, "It is my belief that you were doing great and irreparable harm to my country. You were using the military to create fear in the minds of the people, and we are trying to protect the American people. You subscribe to many of the principles that we fought against."
You thought about resigning. You did not.
I thought at the time it was a consideration of mine, but several people counseled me, and they reminded me that an officer, a commissioned officer, resigning is the consummate political act, and that it's our obligation to stay out of politics. And if I were to resign, then that would be a grave mistake, and it would be putting the uniform even more into politics.
So for the months ahead, Milley concentrated on only his vast military responsibilities. But then came Election Day, January 6th, and Trump's refusal to accept the outcome of the election.
That was a rigged election.
Reports abounded that Chairman Milley was worried that President Trump might try to use the military to stay in power.
Were you concerned at any time that you might receive an illegal order after Election Day?
I never did receive an illegal order.
Was there concern?
Well, you know, I argued the case at various times for alternative courses of action, never received an illegal order.
You were in this building on January 6th.
Mm-hmm.
You saw what happened on January 6th.
Mm-hmm.
Are you nervous about that happening again? Can you honestly say you're not nervous about that happening again?
No, I'm not nervous about it. No, I think that, first of all, I think...
Do you worry about it? You will be long gone from the Pentagon.
Yeah, no, I don't worry about a lot of things, Martha. I don't get nervous about a lot of things. I've seen a lot of combat, so I'm beyond that, actually. So, but I would tell you that the United States, the institutions of the United States, are very strong and very resilient. I talked to...
I want to clear this up.
Sure.
Okay, whatever words you use, worry, concern, but are you confident that that won't happen again?
I am confident that the United States and the democracy of this country will prevail, and the rule of law will prevail. I'm absolutely confident of that. And these institutions are built to be strong, resilient, and to adapt to the times. And I'm 100% confident we'll be fine.
But nearly 3 years after the 2020 presidential election, millions of Americans still believe it was illegitimate.
As you leave, what do you see when you look at this country and you know millions and millions of people are convinced the election was stolen?
Well, I wouldn't ever comment publicly on the politics of America. I mean, that's not the place of a commissioned officer. It's certainly not the.
I'm not asking you to talk about politics.
Yeah,
I'm asking you to talk about the American people.
Yeah, so I'm very optimistic. Always have been. The American people are strong. They're good people. They're smart. Our military is still far and away the #1 military in the world. Despite the various criticisms that are out there, it's a highly respected institution within our society. We've got a very strong and resilient set of institutions. Sometimes they bend, but they don't break. So we've got a committed group of people in uniform. We're committed to the Constitution, and I'm very, very optimistic about the future of the United States.
General Milley, I know you say that. I know you're an optimistic person, but 38% of Americans think Joe Biden is not the legitimate president. As optimistic as you are, when you look at those numbers and when you look at crowds saying the election was stolen, what do you think? What do you do about that?
The United States, Martha, has been under a lot of challenges over the years, right? So there's a term I've talked to people about, the conceit of the present, where people think that the present is always the worst. Well, it's not always the worst. We did have an American Civil War, which was unbelievable. It tore the country apart. The late 1800s were tough. World War I was certainly a challenge. Right after World War I was a challenge. If you go to the 1930s, there were 25,000 people in Madison Square Garden saying, Sieg Heil, before the Japanese attacked us at Pearl Harbor, and then all of a sudden everything changed. My mother and father are both products of the Depression and World War II. Korea was a challenge. Vietnam was hard. I was 10 years old in 1968 when Bobby Kennedy was shot, Martin Luther King was shot, and there was a riot right here in D.C. that killed 38 people. So we've been through some tough times. This is not the toughest time. America will prevail. It'll come through stronger on the other end, and the American people are going to be just fine.
You told your Princeton Alumni Weekly that as a soldier, you have and never will make public comments about President Trump, President Biden, or future presidents. How about when you're out of uniform?
Same thing. I mean, I look at it, in uniform or out of uniform. As a general officer, I'm always a general officer, and I think it's inappropriate for me to make comments about this president or that president. I just don't think it's right. Look at, I've spent
even if a president you feel threatens democracy.
Like I said, I think it's a professional ethic, and the American people will be the deciders of who they elect as a president. It's not going to be a general. It's not going to be someone in uniform. I comment on policies. You can comment on, and you should comment on policies, especially in the areas of national security, because you have certain expertise in that. But ad hominem attacks on politicians, I don't think there's a place for that.
And our thanks to Martha Raddatz for that.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.